Let's dive right into the two sentences and see what kind of transition we're looking for before we get into these complicated transition words. When soil becomes contaminated by toxic metals, it can be removed from the ground and disposed of in a landfill. Okay. Contaminated soil can be detoxified via phytoremediation. I think I'm saying that right. Plants that can withstand high concentrations of metals absorb the pollutants and store them in their shoots, which are then cut off and safely disposed of, preserving the health of the plants. Okay, all right, so I don't even know what's going on here. Let's see. When soil becomes contaminated by toxic metals, it can be removed from the ground and disposed of in a landfill. So you can remove the soil. Contaminated soil can be detoxified via this thing. So the soil can be detoxified by the plants. So these are different things. We can just remove the soil directly, or we can have the plants fix the soil and then we can remove the plants. But those are not the same thing. Those are two different examples. So we kind of have a 1 and 2 situation here. So I don't know. Let's see what we get. I kind of want to feel like, like also is kind of like the word. Let's see. Alternatively. Well, alternative gives us like two alternatives, right? Two possible choices. That could work. Specifically is not going to be right because that's when we're giving a specific example of something. So these are not the same example, maybe is the best way to put it, right? The second sentence is not an example of the first. The first is one way to do things, remove the soil. The second is a completely different way to do things. So it's not a more specific definition of what we just got, right? In number 1, we're getting one path, one method. In number 2, we're getting a different method. I think that many of you will pick B though, because I don't think you see it the way I do. I think you're just like seeing, okay, they're talking about soil and removing contaminated soil. So you're seeing it as just one big idea, but this is why when we don't have a gut reaction, we really need to dive a little deeper and see what we can get. This, I think, yeah, is going to be a trap. I might be wrong. Well, okay. Okay. So C could also be a trap. And maybe I should have looked ahead. What does specifically mean? Well, it means we're giving a specific example. What does for example mean? It means we're giving a specific example. So look, these two things mean the exact same thing. This is a strategy that was very useful on the last version of the SAT. It's a little less useful on the new digital version, but I think it would have saved us here. Basically, all of these transition words, or many of them I should say, fit into categories. And if we find ourselves with two words that have the same basic definition, that are in the same category, then it's very unlikely that one of those could be right and the other wrong. I mean, if specifically and for example mean the same thing, how would we know which one is right and which one is wrong, right? They're too similar for us to distinguish them. Therefore, if they can't both be right, they must both be wrong. So here, the strategy would take over for me. If I was a little unsure, it would take over and really just nudge me away from choices B and C. They're way too similar. And D, as a result, that just doesn't make sense here because it's not a result. There's no cause and effect. Like I said originally, these are two different ideas. And if you were between A and D and you didn't notice that they were two separate ideas originally, hopefully with that strategy, you're able to now kind of start to think maybe they are, right? What does it mean to have alternatives? And now you go back into the sentences and you try to understand them more in depth because you have a clear purpose given to you by choice A, right? It's asking you for a specific thing. Choice D is asking you for a result or a consequence. So when you go and you look in the choice or in the passage for specific ideas, you're more likely to know what they're trying to say in those passages. It's a very common strategy when we have the reading passage parts of this section, but it also helps us here when we only care about a transition. Both cases, we're really just looking what ideas are given in the lines.